all right, we're gonna make one about the dreams. All right, that's it. I mean, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do. I have to like seek therapy or whatever. Basically, I'm traumatized. Right, the subject matter of this channel will, if you actually understand it, takes a little bit to understand. But basically, the pill causes embryonic death. Right, the pill causes embryonic death, and at first I was like, well, maybe not. Then I really started to understand that the pill causes embryonic death on a scale like you could never really, even contemplate, right? The pill causes embryonic death. That means that these doctors are fully aware of that, and they lie about implantation. They're saying, no, the pregnancy starts at implantation. You don't have to worry. It doesn't cause a baby to die. It doesn't cause early abortion, but it does. They're lying, right? They're liars, dirty, stinking liars. You'd be a fool to trust a physician in this day and age, right? Breaking the Hippocratic Oath and all this stuff. And so all the videos that I made and all this stuff are verified. Like they are not exact. Well, I mean, as for the proof of death and all this stuff, right, that is something that is to be inferred, right? The proof of death must be inferred because you can't put a CCTV in a fallopian tube. You're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to put a CCTV in a fallopian tube. You can't actually do that. But, like I said, the argument is that if you were to, right, let's say for example you have a woman on a pill and then she were to have intercourse and then she's on the pill but there's conception there, and you were to freeze that woman, like literally cryogenically or whatever you want to say, like literally freeze that woman, it would kill her or whatever. So then you would dissect until you see the ovaries, right? See the fallopian tube, and then you would like forensically pick out that embryo, and you would test the DNA. You would say, there's a DNA. There's a zygotic genome activation right there. It's there. It is there. You would never do that because you would kill the woman. It would not be, ethical to do that. But you see what I'm saying here? Let's say, for example, I'm going to say it again. Let's say, for example, you got a healthy woman or whatever, childbearing age, right? And she's on the pill, right? The pill causes embryonic death, right? Okay, so she's on the pill, right? And then she has intercourse or whatever, right? So a few days later, when it's a conception, right? You got a few days or whatever, and then there's a conception. If you're not aware of embryology, there's the cleavage there, right? Which is the actual separation or the cell's growing, right? It's a clump of cells. It is 100%. It's a clump of very, very wonderful, magical, beautiful, precious, valuable cells, right? Anyway, the cleavage, right? And then there's four cells and then 8 cells. Yeah, that's what a human, he or she does, right? And then after that, you have the zygotic genome activation. Okay, so after that, let's say, for example, you got the zygotic genome activation, and then you were to freeze the woman. Like, literally, it would cause her death, unfortunately. We love this woman, whatever, but we had to freeze her for science. Right? It's not going to happen. I'm not going to freeze anybody. Well, let's say, for example, you did. Let's say, for example, you did. Or if you found a way not to, you don't need to kill her. You could just, like, incise and, I don't know. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's say, for example, you freeze her, right? Let's say, for example, you freeze her, and then you dissect until the fallopian tube, right? And then you test it. There's a DNA. There's a DNA, okay? Okay, so let's say, for example, you go back in time. She never was frozen because we have a time machine, right? So, but you know that there's a new baby in there, okay? And then after that, you wait until the implantation, which is day 8, right? And then you do the whole thing again. You freeze her, and then you see... Or actually, you don't need to freeze her because you just take a pregnancy test and she's not pregnant. What does that mean? That means the baby died at the implantation stage. Right? The baby that would have otherwise implanted died at the implantation stage. The healthy baby boy or baby girl died. So you don't need to freeze her again because we just need to take pregnancy. She doesn't need to pee on the stick. That's all she needs to do. You don't even need to do that anymore. Right? You just need to freeze her once and go back in time and unfreeze her. Or just, she never was frozen because you have a time machine. We won't do that, right? What am I saying? What am I saying? I'm saying it's inconvenient, but not impossible, to prove the death of this valuable embryo. It's not an abstract thing. It's not an abstract thing. It is a very, very real thing that this embryo is at risk, serious risk of death because of these goons, these so-called doctors, and not doctors, doctors of death. They're wicked, wicked liars. That's what they are. And they will say, "Oh, the implantation is the starting of pregnancy." Where does it say that? Where does it say that? Where does it say the implantation is the starting of pregnancy? In the gynecological book, right? That you guys wrote? No, it's a lie. It's a lie. They are lying. So then, okay, and all this stuff, and all this stuff. And now, that is just one part of it. That's just one part of it. The other part of it is everybody's blindly going along with it because they can't get, they cannot they cannot wrap their minds around that, right? They can't see that there is actually an embryo inside of the fallopian tube of the woman. Right? There is. Don't fool yourself. There is an embryo there. There is a valuable baby boy or baby girl. A clump of cells. It's a clump of cells. The most valuable, most precious clump of cells there is. Right? I like how these pro-abortion use clump of cells because it most certainly is. It's a product of conception. It's a clump of cells. Absolutely, we must do everything to protect he or she, him or her. Absolutely, we must do everything we can to protect him or her, not alter the endometrium to cause the death. They don't say, what's the how do we know that this baby which would have otherwise implanted failed to implant? Right? How do we know that? How's that? You're trying to prove a negative, right? That's what they're trying to do. They're saying maybe this embryo would have not implanted naturally, right? They're saying that, right? Okay, very, very convenient of you to say that when you're altering the endometrium, right? At the same time they're altering the endometrium, they're saying that, right? They're saying, no, well, this embryo, maybe the embryo wouldn't have implanted naturally. Okay, which happens, okay? Very, very convenient for them to say that. Sure, it's true. And then after that, you get into the statistical probability and all this stuff. But that's just it starts to get into the philosophy of it. It's actually not the philosophy. It is science. But they're saying, okay, but no. The truth is that this embryo, the precious embryo, the baby boy or baby girl, died directly as a result of the endometrial change, right? The altered endometrium, right? That has directly caused the death of the baby, right? The precious baby boy or baby girl that was very, very valuable, that had unique DNA and had every bit of value, as even more so than these goons, even more valuable than these goons, more valuable. It could have created as art and literature and history and whatever kind of academic discipline, mathematician, genius or something like that, and we're throwing away life like that. These goons and everything. Okay, so then that's just one part of it, and then after that you got basically the whole society, which is completely, complicit. Maybe they really do know, or maybe they don't know. Maybe they're just kind of not 100% at that, cognitive level or whatever, that they don't. I don't know. I just can't understand why so many people go with it, right? And then after that, you got the one at the top, which is the doctor, which is basically controlling everything, like a master of puppets, right? Basically saying, controlling, these young teenage girls, right? And I'm having the whole point of the video. I promise I'm getting somewhere in this, is that I'm having recurring nightmares about this, even last night, and I'm starting to put them on Excel sheets, right? So basically, you got the doctor and the master of puppets, right? The doctor is the master of puppets, and they're saying, you're gonna take these pills, and it's not gonna cause any pregnancy. You can fornicate with Chad and Tyrone all you want, yeah? And then the girl is 15 years old. She's like, wow, this is my ticket to debauchery. Right? I can do whatever I want, right? And what a great message to say to these young women. Well, what a wonderful message that is, huh? You can fornicate with no consequence at all. Except for the fact that what kind of